Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Right Women Network Salon. We're really excited to have Josh Floyd with IngramSpark here today. He is going to give us the lowdown on tips and advice using the IngramSpark platform to publish your books and best practices and success for the retail market. He will give a presentation. He's got some slides and things to share with us. And then we will be having a question and answer session. So I do have a few of your questions here that you left on the event Facebook page. Some of those questions may get answered. If they don't, I will ask them. But everybody, just jot your questions down as we go. If they don't get answered in the slide, go ahead and ask Josh when he gets to that part. Thank you so much, Josh, for being here with us. We really appreciate it. I love IngramSpark. I've published through IngramSpark before. It was the very first place I ever published a book, so it's kind of special to me in that way. You've been with IngramSpark for over 10 years, and that's correct. Is that right?
I've been with Ingram over 10 years, so I've had a lot of different roles through different departments, but all in a sales function, whether it's selling to bookstores or authors or publishers.
Okay, great. And so we have a very knowledgeable person here to give us this information, and I'm just going to hand it on over to you. I'm going to put you on the speaker view there we go. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. So yes, as Heather mentioned, if you like and you have questions come up throughout the presentation, feel free to throw them in the chat. A lot of times the questions will get answered in a couple slides anyway, and then at the end, I'll go through the chat and answer any of the questions that were not answered throughout the presentation. So let's get started. 1 second to get set up. All right. All right. Does everybody see the screen? Do you see that there, Heather? All right. Well, first off, thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm very, very appreciative to be a welcome guest and be able to share some knowledge about IngramSpark and indie and self-publishing in general. So what you see below is kind of the flow of the slides. This is all the different topics we're going to talk about this evening, starting with Ingram, going to ebooks. POD is print on demand for those who are not familiar with that acronym. We'll get into some metadata, and then we'll talk a little bit about best practices for retail success. So that's me. I'm Josh. I've been with Ingram, as I mentioned, a little over a decade, almost 11 years now, working in all the various different departments that we have. And I've been with IngramSpark for the past, I want to say 5 years, maybe 6. So it's definitely been a long ride. Okay. So first, let's get started talking about who is Ingram and what is a wholesale model. So for those of you who are not familiar with Ingram, Ingram is one of the world's largest, most trusted wholesalers and distributors of print and digital content. And so the way a wholesale model works is you have Ingram there in the middle. Then you have all of our publishers, traditional and self-publishing authors and mid-size publishing houses that are feeding their information, their content into Ingram, getting their books into Ingram so that Ingram can turn around and sell those books to all the retailer and libraries. So for the US, we service all retailers and public libraries. And then for rest of world outside of US, it's all retailers. And so that's 40,000 plus different retailers across the world, whether it's an online retailer, an independent bookstore, a big box store, anywhere you see books sold typically has an Ingram account so that they have access to the 16 million plus titles that we have available at Ingram. So basically publishers unload, put their content in, retailers are the ones pulling it out in the wholesale model. So here's some of Ingram's reach. We have our global and regional chain bookstores, our independent retailers, university bookshops, internet retailers, gift retailers, museum shops, public and school libraries in the US. So there's a lot of different entities that are ordering from Ingram on a daily basis. And we'll just do a quick hit about our ebook distribution partners. You see them all listed here. So we have one of the most robust, expansive ebook distribution platforms as well. So you can not only do your print book with us, but you can also do your ebook distribution through us too. One of the caveats that we have in our ebook program is you can actually opt out of Apple and Amazon. So if you have direct relationships with those two entities and you say, hey, I'm good working directly with them, but I just want to use you for everybody else outside of them, you can certainly do that. So you can upload your ebooks, you can not opt into Amazon and Apple, and still have access to all these different ebook retailers you see listed here. So the IngramSpark mission statement: empowering publishing success by connecting content creators with a global audience. That is our ultimate goal, is to make sure that your books are out in the world and as discoverable as possible and out there for readers to find. So let's talk about the IngramSpark Advantage. As I mentioned, it's a one-stop platform for both print and ebook distribution. It's free to open an account. As an IngramSpark customer, you are the publisher. So you are in complete control of your publishing model. That's your retail price, the discounts, the return options, all of that you have control over, and you would set your own parameters. And we're going to go into each of these throughout the presentation. Your content is always available via print on demand. It's one of the best things about print on demand is that it's always there. It's just a virtual file living in our servers, and we don't print the books until they're ordered. Whether it's you ordering books for yourself, needing them print and shipped wherever you need them print and shipped to, or retailers and libraries ordering from Ingram, and we print the books when those orders come in. There again, we have the widest global reach with over 40,000 retailers and libraries, and then the largest network of ebook online retailers. So POD and distribution, how it works. There again, you set up your free IngramSpark account, and then you're going to go in and upload your print or ebook files. So there's not any pre-media services that we offer, meaning we're not going to help you create the files, format them, editing, any of that stuff. We are really here to print and ship your print books where they need to go and distribute your ebooks where they need to go. So the most advantage you're going to be able to take is when you're ready to actually start uploading your books. They're finished, they're completed, you have your files formatted, created, and you're ready to go. So you upload those print files or the ebook files to your account. Then you're going to set up the pricing. So you're going to set your retail price. You're going to set your return options. With IngramSpark, you do have the ability to do pre-orders, which is something you can't do at many of the other print-on-demand services that are available out there, or self-publishing services that are available out there. So going through IngramSpark allows you the ability to go ahead and do pre-orders, getting your book set up in advance so that you have sales in the system before the book actually reaches pub date. You can turn on distribution so that the title appears in Ingram's catalog. So there again, you heard me mention the printing is twofold. It's either you're printing books that you need for yourself, or you're going to turn them on for distribution and make them available into Ingram, and Ingram will fulfill those orders to the retailers. And it's not either or, it's both. So that's just the capabilities that you have within the account. When you turn that book on for distribution, we send the information into Ingram for your title. And then Ingram sends that book metadata, all the information about the book, out into the world to all the retailers. So the book, when you upload we're going to talk about print books specifically. So when you upload your book to IngramSpark, we're automatically going to make it available at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And then it goes into Ingram's iPage, which I'll show you here in a little bit. But Ingram's iPage is the catalog that all the retailers and libraries use to get into Ingram's system, see what books are available, see the stock, and what the availability is for that title. Ingram uses POD to manufacture the print titles, as we mentioned. So that book is ordered, we print and ship it where it needs to go on your behalf, and then Ingram pays you for the sale, which we call our publisher compensation. And we'll get into all the details on each of these as we go through. So why print on demand makes sense. There's no inventory to manage. There's no warehousing cost. There's no guesswork regarding potential demand. So if you're not really sure how well this book's going to do that you've created, you're not investing in a large print run. You're saying, okay, I'm putting the book out there. It's not going to be printed until it's ordered. And now let me see what kind of demand I'm going to get from my readership. You have access to global distribution, retailer markets. You can revise at any time. So the best thing about print on demand versus doing large print runs up front is that you can have the most current edition or the most current information for your book on the very next book that you order. What I mean by that is you can go in and revise at any time. So if you've got your cover file and you've set up and you're printing and going, and then all of a sudden you get a great blurb or you get a great review and you got something that you want to put on the cover, you have the ability to go in and revise that cover, and the very next book printed will have that new blurb or that new review on your back cover that you put in there. Same for the interior. So there again, you may get the book done and have a couple in hand and notice a typo, like a glaring typo you made on page 70. Well, you can correct that, go in, upload your new interior files so that the very next book printed has the proper, is corrected, it's edited, it has the proper files that you want going out the door. There's fast turnaround times. Print on demand is faster than your original offset printing or going to go overseas and have the books printed and then shipped back. It's just the turnaround time is so much faster when you're working with digital files. So things to know about distribution. You still have to market your book so people know your book is available. There again, we're making the book available to the world, and we're going to fulfill those orders when they come in. So that frees you up to be telling people about your book. So as the publisher, when you're thinking about IngramSpark, the best thing is think about where the folks in the warehouses, printing, picking, packing, shipping the books where they need to go, your back end warehouse crew, freeing you up to do front of house, which is create, sell, and market your content. Retailers and libraries prefer to order from Ingram. It just makes it easier on them. So if you're ever dealing with a bookstore or a library and they said they want to see your book at Ingram, reason being is they're ordering all those other books on their shelves from Ingram on a regular basis. So when your book is in the Ingram system, it flows into the natural processes that they're used to on any other book that they're ordering. So your book is available the same as a Macmillan or Simon & Schuster title, and that bookstore knows exactly what they're getting when they're ordering from Ingram. It helps them. It helps with their workflows. Ingram is not directly selling your books into the stores. There again, you're the publisher, so you're going to be out marketing and selling your titles, but we are not out actively hand selling your titles into bookstores through IngramSpark. Changes made to metadata like pricing are sent out in our data feeds, but it's up to our channel partners to update their site. So the reason we throw that in there, something that happens a lot is you'll get your files uploaded and you're ready to go. And then you go to Amazon to look for your book and it's not there yet. Or you go to barnesandnoble.com and it's just the image, but not the other information. It takes these retailers a little time to get all that new metadata that we're sending to them every 4 hours and update their sites. Some move faster than others. And so you may see it populate at some retail sites faster than you do the other ones that you're looking at. So just give it time and give the retailers an opportunity to catch up on their websites with all the new information that we're sending them. Pre-distribution advice. So it's very important to work with professionals if you want a professional book. You want to invest in your editing, your design, and your marketing, not inventory. Something I've always said is quality over quantity is what we're looking at. You want to spend the money to have the best possible book available to the market without necessarily spending the money to just try to chase that low print cost. So for instance, if I order 40,000 copies of a book, it's obviously going to be a cheaper print cost, but now I've got 40,000 books I've got to sit on, I've got to warehouse them, I've got to ship them out, or you do whatever it is that I'm doing with them. Whereas if I spend the money and really get really nice editing, get a great cover design, and then spend that money on marketing, I'm going to see a better return on my investment in that scenario. You want to go standard on binding and trim size. This is important, especially if you're having success selling into brick and mortars or libraries. Their shelves are built to handle certain trim sizes based on a genre. So if you go in and you do a children's YA with a 7x10 format, well, that's a book that's a little bigger than the other books you're going to see on the shelf. So you want to stay standard. You want to be at that 5.5 by 8.5, 5 by 8, or 6 by 9. It's just you want to make sure that you are in the same specs, in the same vein as all the other books in your genre that are sitting on the shelves around it. Definitely need to use social media to build your author platform and readership. As many of you may know, book talk is huge right now, and that is a big way of moving titles and getting discoverability by retailers. So book talk has gotten so big that I know from the retailers that I work with, they actually have people on staff who are on there every day now looking at book talk. Walmart does, Indigo does, Target does, independent bookstores do. They're in there looking at all the different ways that socially that they can discover the books that are really taking off. You don't know how readers prefer to purchase your book, so you want to use the widest distribution options available to you. So with us, you can set your title up for all of the world. I mean, you can set it up for your US, Canada, Europe, France, all over, Australia. So when you're doing that, you'll see it when we go through the title setup within your IngramSpark account. It'll ask you if you want to add the market pricing for all these different countries. And you definitely want to do that because you don't know where your reader is going to find your book and who or where they're at. Little anecdotal story there is I was working with Dr. Pete, who manages a pain clinic in Kansas City. And he did a book and he made it as a supplement. Basically, he just wanted a book for his patients to be able to take home and do some of the practices that he has when they're not in office. So really, he was not trying to create a book that he wanted to sell. He was just trying to create a book that he could better assist his patients with. And so he asked me about the rest of the world. He said, Josh, you know, my patients are here in Kansas City. I'm going to make it available for sale. Why would I need to make it available across the world? And I talked to him about it. I said, it's free. There's no reason to not have it available everywhere readers are found. Well, about a month or two later, after he released his book, I get a nice note from Dr. Pete. And he's telling me that he was so happy that he put the rest of world pricing in, because what happened is he had a lady in France who had a lot of this, or who had illness, or, you know, she fit what he could help. So she had a certain illness. And when she went online to start researching how best to attack this illness, she got to Dr. Pete and his pain clinic there in Kansas City. She saw his book. She found his book online. And so she ordered it, loved it. It helped her. And she told her friends about it who had similar ailments. And now he got 20 new customers, 20 new patients that he would have never gotten before had he not made that book available in the world. So now he's got 20 people in France who subscribed to his pain clinic just because he made the book available. Somebody discovered it and then shared it with their friends. So it really is, you never know where those sales are going to come from and how people are going to find your book. So you want to make it available anywhere you possibly can. And then just like you're doing right now, network professionally by joining author organizations, writers groups, industry communities. It's really important in the publishing world to network. And I'm talking about even like with your other authors that are within your group here. You should all have your, you know, social media linked up together. You should be able to share back and forth, be able to cross-pollinate your readerships. By, you know, if I got a book out and I know Heather's got a book out, the best way for me to sell a book is to talk about, I've read Heather's book. This book is great. You know, check it out, and I'll send it out. And then Heather does the same in return with her followers and says, hey, I just read this book from Josh. It's amazing. Y'all want to check it out. So what you're really doing is working together to create sales. And then another important thing is having great metadata. So I've said that word a couple of times and it may not be confusing just the way it is, but metadata equals discoverability. So metadata is all the bibliographical data points, all the information about that book that we're sending out in that data feed to the industry. And so why is that important? Because I said it equals discoverability. So let's look at some of the metadata. So this is what we consider metadata: is your book title and author, your bios, your bisects, your keywords, your description, your ISBN. All this information is what you're entering when you're uploading your title. And that is all the information that we're going to send out to the retailers in the world. So here's an example. This is Ingram's iPage that I had mentioned earlier. So this is an old book that we did. We're updating to the new edition since we've updated our platform. But this was a book we created a long time ago when we first rolled out in IngramSpark. And this is what iPage looks like. So if I'm at a bookstore or I'm talking to a librarian and they're on the computer clicking away while I'm telling them about my book, what they're doing is they're in iPage looking for your book. They want to see it available from Ingram. And then once they see it's available from Ingram, they have all the information they could possibly need right there. They know who the author is, the publishing company, the retail price, whether it's returnable or non-returnable, whether there's other formats like a hardcover versus a paperback. And then they also get to see what their discount is. So the discount is very important. And that's something we'll talk about even more throughout the rest of this presentation, is that your discount that you set up when for those of you who have set up an IngramSpark account, you're familiar with what I'm referring to. But when you go in to set up your pricing, you're going to put in your retail price of $9.99 that we have on this one. And then you're going to put in a discount. And that discount is what you, the publisher, are offering Ingram, the wholesaler, so that they can turn around and sell your book. Ingram can turn around and sell your book to their customers, the retailers and libraries, at the discount that they're used to getting. So it's really important that, because this happens all the time too, is that you'll be talking to a bookseller and they'll say, look, I like this book. I think we could sell it, but I need to see it I need at least a 40% discount. Well, the confusion happens is when you go into your IngramSpark account and you say, okay, the bookseller said they need 40, so I put 40 in as the discount. Well, what you're doing is you're offering Ingram 40% off that retail price. It's not going directly to the bookseller. So Ingram's only getting a 40% discount. They can't turn around and sell it to the bookseller at 40% because there's no money made. So if you are out and you are beating the streets, or you have success with retailers who want to bring your books into the store, then you want to have a full trade discount. And the way you do that within your IngramSpark account is you have to set your discount at least 53%. So when you're setting up your titles in IngramSpark, you'll see, okay, I can set my discount at anywhere from 30 to 55%. So 53, 54, 55 will get you a full trade discount. So when I'm a retailer and I look at iPage, I can say, oh, discount reg. That means I get my regular discount as a retailer from Ingram. So I get the same discount on this book that I do on any other book that I'm ordering from Ingram from any type of publisher. If you're not having success with independent bookstores or big box stores or books on the shelf, and you're driving most of your sales online, you can get away with a smaller discount than 53% at a lot of retailers, because as an independent bookstore or a bookstore itself, I'm bringing that book in hoping that somebody comes in and buys it. So I'm buying that book like a stock. And I'm saying, I'm putting this book on the shelf and I hope somebody comes in off the street and buys this. Whereas if it's an online transaction, it's different because the end user is the one buying the book. There's not as much risk for the retailer because I'm the end user, I'm the reader, I went to the site, bought the book, it's going to me. So it's not like there's a possibility that this book's not going to sell, it's already sold. So that's where the discount comes into play. So, and you can change these. So once a week, you can revise your retail price and your discount and your return status too. So for instance, if I start out as a debut author and I know I don't have a track record with selling in store or selling to stores, what I would do is I would come out and say, okay, I know that most of my sales are probably going to take place online for right now, so I can get away with a smaller discount and make more money per sale. But if all of a sudden I'm getting interest and bookstores are reaching out to me and they're saying, hey, we'd like to carry your book, we see it's available at Ingram, but the discount's not there that we need, then you can make a business decision and say, okay, am I getting enough traction from the in-store sales that I do want to say, okay, yes, I'm opening this up, let's rock and roll and sell it to the independents and all the other brick and mortars. I would go in and go up to a 53% discount. That way I know that all the retailers are getting the exact pricing that they want. We call this bookstore friendly terms when you have a full trade discount and return status. And here's the same book. So that's that metadata going out. Same book listed at Amazon. All my information about the book, the pricing, the description, all my author info, everything I've entered in my IngramSpark account is going out to these retail sites. And then here's Barnes & Noble. So setting your book up for retail success. So when we're talking about pricing, there again, global pricing, you want to add all the different countries that we have available and add the pricing for those countries. And you were setting up the price in each of the countries' respective currency. So Australia, I'm going to be putting it in as an Australian dollar price. UK, I'm putting in as in pounds. So it's you are adjusting, and you can do a conversion. You can say, okay, if something is X in the US on Google, you can say if something's X in the US, what would it be in these other countries, and kind of get a feel for what the retail price should be. Because in some of the countries like Australia, they have higher price points for their books just because of the way their country is, where it's at, where it's located, how hard it is to get the books out there. So readers in Australia are used to paying a little bit more at a higher Australian dollar price than say a US customer is. We talked about the wholesale discount. We talked about a trade discount of 53 to 55. A short discount is anything below 53%. So what happens is in a short discount, that's where I'm saying, okay, I'm going to put the book out there, but I'm not going to put it at a full discount for the bookstores just yet because I'm not getting that type of traction. And so I know that I can not so worried about getting books in store on a shelf. I can get away with a smaller than 53% discount. It's just if you want the widest range and the most availability and the widest reach for your titles to retailers and libraries, going to that full trade discount of 53 is what's going to get you there. So when we talk about returns, there's two different options, obviously, returnable, non-returnable. And then within the return option, we have return destroy. So in that scenario, if I say, all right, I'm going to make my book returnable to, you know, because I'm dealing with bookstores here and I want them to be able, they need the returnability. So what I can do is I can say, okay, I want to make my book returnable, but then I get to choose whether I want to do return or destroy. So return is if the book is returned to Ingram by any of the retailers, then that book would be processed and returned back to you, the publisher. And it's there's a $3 per unit fee per unit that comes back to you on that return. And then also on the return, we're going to recoup the wholesale price that Ingram paid for that book from you. So we would take that out of your publisher compensation. If you did return destroy, the book is returnable, it can come back. And when it comes back, we tear it down, break it down, recycle it. And we don't store any of the inventory. So we just recycle the book. We still would have to recollect that wholesale discount or that wholesale cost back that was paid for the book, but we're not going to be sending you the book once we're done. So you're not going to get that $3 per unit charge because we're not having to mail the book back to you. And then return ship. Well, this is an old slide because it says $2 per book, but it is now $3 per book. That changed in the past, I want to say month or two, that it went up to $3. And then the return policy there, again, the author is charged the wholesale price of the book. And this next slide will, well, the one after this will walk you through that a little bit better. So when you're setting up the book, this is what it's going to look like when you go into your account. You're going to go through, you're going to pick the binding, you're going to pick which paper you want, whether you want hardcover, paperback, whether it's a color interior book or a black and white interior book, the trim size. You're just going to go through the process of each of the fields and build your book that way. So here is a picture of the help center within the account. So we have our calculator tools. So we have one that's a printing and shipping calculator that will tell you what it costs you to order books for yourself based on the specifications you put in. And then the other one is your publisher compensation calculator. And that's the calculator that will tell you what you're going to make every time the book sells based off the book specs you put in, the retail price, and all that good stuff. And so if you already have an IngramSpark account, you can just go into your account, click help, and then you'll find the pricing calculators in the middle of that page. If you do not have an IngramSpark account yet and you're wondering what it would cost you to print some books, what you can do is go to ingramspark.com. You can click on resources and click on calculators, and we have the calculators living there on the website for you to access without even having an account. So I did a lot of talk about the discount and how that works. Here's a snapshot of what it would look like in this scenario of the book being ordered. So in this scenario, I've got a book with a retail price of $20. I'm offering a 53% discount because I want a full trade discount. I'm interested in getting the bookstores on board with carrying my book. So in this scenario, I have a $20 book. I'm going to offer Ingram a 53% discount on it, which means every time a retailer or library orders it from Ingram, Ingram is buying it from me, the publisher, at $9.40, which is $20 minus 53%. The print cost for this particular example of the 300-page 6x9 paperback is roughly $5.37. So IngramSpark, we are the printer, and that's where we make money, is printing the books. And so in this scenario, it's retail price minus the discount that I'm offering Ingram, who's going to buy the book from me at $9.40. In this scenario, I've got a print cost of $5.37 per book. That leaves $4.03 left over that Ingram would pay directly into my checking account every single time that book sells. And we pay out those payments 90 days from the end of the month in which the sale took place. So if I have a book that's out and about, and I sell a book on January 1st, I sell one on January 20th, and then another one on January 29th. That's 3 books that sold in the month of January. So I would get paid 90 days from the end of the month in January for the books that sold, for those 3 books that sold in January. And it just continues to go. So every month we look at how many orders you had, and then we'll pay you out 90 days as a direct deposit from the end of that month. So setting up your title for pre-sales, the most important thing to keep in mind when you're doing pre-sales and pre-orders is, well, there's a couple things. One, you definitely want to make sure that when you turn that book on for pre-orders, that you have the final files that are ready to go. So if I have a book that's releasing December 1st and I'm done and completed with it by October 1st, I can go ahead and upload that book. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there and then start doing my marketing and my media and trying to drive orders so that when December 1st hits, I've already got orders in the pipeline. Well, to do that, when you're setting up your book, it asks you for a publication date and then it asks you for an on sale date. If you were doing pre-orders, you want to make both those dates the same. So in my example, I would make both the pub date and on sale date December 1st, so that the market knows that, hey, this book is not going to be available until December 1st, but it is available for ordering now, so we can go ahead and get our back orders in and our pre-orders in. You want to start marketing your book to stores and readers. Be clear when the retailer or reader will receive your book on the on sale date. Be retailer agnostic. I mean, there's a lot of different outlets out there where books can sell, whether it's an independent bookstore, a big box store, an online outlet, even online at your local independent bookstore's website, because they have websites too for online commerce. And so it's really, you want to make sure that when you're doing your marketing, that you're not just driving folks to, say, one online retailer that everybody likes to buy from. You can say it's available there and everywhere else books are sold. So that's one of the things that I always like to tell folks is when your book is available through Ingram, you're pretty safe saying that my book is available for purchase anywhere books are sold, because they're gonna typically, as a retailer, gonna have an Ingram account and have access to your book. You want to get reviews and you want to see readers into stores to order your book. So this is if any of you are familiar with Kwame Alexander, I've heard him do his speech a few times over the years at conferences, and he's a children's book author. And he talks about how he got to be so successful. And it really is about priming the pump. So what I tell folks, if you want to see your books in bookstores, send people to the bookstore to buy your book, because ultimately these bookstores are retailers. They're there to sell a product. So if I do a lot of speaking events with booksellers on stage with me to talk to authors and publishers about this. And as a bookseller, if all of a sudden I'm having to special order the same book over and over, I'm automatically, even if I don't know who the author is or anything about the book, I'm going to go ahead and automatically order some more copies to send on my shelf, because I don't have to keep special ordering it. For some reason, I don't know why, as the retailer, there's people coming in buying this one particular book. I had to order it on Monday. I had somebody come in Wednesday, you know what, and then somebody came in Friday. So I've sold 3 or 4 copies this past week. Let's go ahead and throw 2 or 3 extra copies of stock on the next order we place, because I don't know what it is, but somehow this book is selling and we need to carry it in the store. So if you really want to see your books at retailers, send readers to the retailers to purchase your book. Notes for brick and mortar success. So you want to check the price of comp titles, and comp titles are comparable titles. So if you're not really sure what retail price you need to be at for a book, you can go down to your local bookstore, whether it's a big box chain or whether it's an independent. You can go online. If you go online, make sure you look at the actual manufacturer suggested retail price, not the discounted price. But for me, if I was unsure about what I would want to price a book at, say there again, I've done a YA adventure story. And so what I would do is I would go down to my local store, I would go to the YA section, and then I would just start looking at all the books that are comparable to mine. If I did a paperback, I'm going to look at paperbacks. If I did a hardcover, I'm going to look at hardcovers. I'm going to pick books that are similar trim size as mine. So if I've done a 5x8, I'm going to look at the 5.5 by 8.5 or the 6x9s. I'm going to get as close as I can to my book with these other ones that are on the shelf. I'm doing a YA adventure, so I'm going to look at the other YA adventure titles, and I'm just going to start kind of pulling them down and looking at their retail prices. And what I'm going to do in that scenario is say, okay, I've looked at 10 books off this shelf that are very, very similar to what I'm trying to create or I have created, and I'm going to look at that price range. You don't want to be at the bottom of the price range, because you never want to devalue your content and give up money, because the lower you make that retail price, the less money you have when that book sells that you're making for the margin. And it's better. So a lot of folks have that idea is, okay, if my book's the cheapest, it's the one that's going to get bought, because the books are a little bit different than other items and other products, in that if I go out to buy a book, I know what kind of content I'm looking for. I know what I want to read. I know typically what authors I want to read. So I know what I'm looking for. So I'm not really price shopping, because I'm not going to pick up a book and say, I don't know anything about this. I don't know who this author is, but the book's only $11.99 when the book that I actually want, that I came for, is $15, $16.99. It's not apples to apples. So I know as a reader, I'm going in and understand that that's the book I want, and that's what I'm going to pay for the book, is whatever it is. And so you definitely want to not devalue your content. So in that scenario, if I'm looking at 10 books and I see that the bottom range is $11.99 and the top range is $19.99, I'm probably going to settle in that $16, $17.99, because I don't want to devalue my content to the point where I'm just bottoming out and not getting as much margin as I can. But I also don't want to price the book so high that I price it out of the range of the other books, because then that does become glaring, where it's like, well, this book's $25.99, but every other one of these books I'm looking at is in this $11 to $19 range. You want to definitely just be in the higher end of that range that you find without pricing yourself out of the market. So success. So working with bookstores, it's great that your book is on Amazon. It's awesome that it's selling, and it's awesome that it's got the rank that it does, but that doesn't translate to independent bookstores because they have a different audience. Whereas Amazon can get traffic, site traffic from anywhere in the world. An independent bookstore is going to say, that's great that it's doing well there, but how do I know people in my community are going to come in and buy this book? So that's when you really want to go in and say, yes, I'm a local here, or I know a big base of readers here that I'm going to be sending to the store. Like, you really want to sell the retailer on why they need to carry your book, because it is going to sell. And just like I said, and because it does well on an online site, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate to doing well in, Country Pines, North Carolina, because they service their community there. And so you really just want to dive into and really drill into, hey, if you're carrying my book, this is how I'm going to drive sales and readers to your store, as my part. There again, if a bookstore agrees to put your book on their shelves, send customers to the store to buy your books. It's really interesting in that, I told you that scenario where you can just send readers in and eventually the store is going to carry your books on the shelf. I have bookstore owners that will tell you they only have to sell a book 4 or 5 times a year to warrant sitting on the shelf. So as long as that book turns over 4 or 5 times a year, it's earned its spot on the shelf. And so it's not hard to send that many readers to a bookstore, specifically if you have a local one that you're trying to work with that's local to you. It should be really easy to send readers in there and get sales traction going to the store. There again, listing anywhere books are sold on your marketing materials is a safe bet. If you want, you should, and you want to get, bookstore sales without actually being in the store, put the bookstore's website in your marketing materials. Because what that does is, even if the book's not set up for full trade yet, if you start having sales on the bookstore site, they're still seeing those sales in their inventory. And so it's a lot easier to be like, hey, I'm a local author. I've got this book out. I've had quite a few sales from the store already, and I would love to, I'm sending people to your store in my marketing. I'd love to, see what we can do about maybe doing an event or getting the book in store. And what that store can do is go in and look at their sales and be like, yeah, you're right. We've sold, 10 to 15 copies of this book online. Let's talk about it. It just makes it a lot easier to have these types of conversations. And you're showing that you understand that sending business to the store is what they're there to do. And there again, professional marketing materials, art, shelf talkers, sell sheet. So if you've got a one sheet, that's what you want to send with your ARC. And an ARC is an advanced reading copy. So that's a book that you go ahead and have available. You don't make it available for sale on the market, but you have it in your account that you can order yourself. And then I can send an ARC to, say I've got 4 or 5 different bookstores that I want to carry my book. I can send that ARC copy with a one sheet sell sheet and say, hey, check this out. And it's just a much more professional way of introducing your titles and your content to retailers without actually being in the store. So it gives you a lot of ground to cover, and it's just very professional. That's what we do when we're doing publisher direct sales for our other distribution lines outside of IngramSpark. Is when I was an independent bookstore rep, I always had to have the ARCs on hand, the shelf talkers if I had them, the shell sheet, whatever in materials I could have, I included when I was working with the bookstores. So library success. Many libraries can purchase a lower discount, non-returnable title. So a library is a little bit different than a bookstore, whereas a bookstore, as the proprietor, I'm using my own money to buy these books, bring them in, and hope that they sell to my local community. Whereas a library, I'm working with a budget that was allotted to me. So if I have patrons that want the book, it's a lot easier for a library to justify, well, I've got patrons that want it. I'm just going to pay, I'll pay whatever it costs for the book. So even if it is a lower discount non-returnable, it's not a big a deal because the library is not buying the book to sell it. They're buying the book to keep it in-house, to keep it in on the shelves for their patrons to be able to check out. So a library is going to return less than 1% of the books they buy. And typically if they do return books, it's just because there was a quality issue with the printing or something like that. So, you don't have to have that full discount on the books. So what I always tell folks is if you're looking to engage with both library and retail, it's really easy to go ahead and make your paperback the retail edition. So make it have the full trade discount of 53% in return status because it's cheaper for you to print, it's cheaper than a hardcover. And then you can make your hardcover your library edition. Libraries are used to paying a little bit more price point per book because they know that they're buying it to use over and over again. So it's not the same as a retail transaction. So you can make your hardcover, you can make it your library edition if you want, and then raise the price, retail price of it some, have a lower discount and non-returnable. You can certainly do that. It's a lot, I'm just saying it's a lot easier to do that route with the libraries than it would be to try to go that route with a retailer. And if you are going to be going into the library market, you want to make sure your book is cataloged. So for libraries, it's really important to have a MARC record, which is a machine readable card or machine readable category card. So if you think about the old, back in the day when we had the, you'd go into the library and you would say, okay, I need to find a book on this. And you would go to the card catalog and you pull that long drawer out and you start flipping through index cards. That's what this is. It's just the digital version of those index cards. So it's very important to have your book cataloged properly so that the libraries can bring it in. If you're going to try to have success with libraries, they love professional reviews. If you can get a great library journal review, you should have no problem selling to a librarian because they trust library journal. They trust it enough that they would just say, if you've got a library journal review that's good, I'm good. Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, all of them. So even within the IngramSpark website, if you go to IngramSpark, click on resources and then the experts, what you'll find on that page is a lot of different companies who offer services that we do not. And you can go there and see the different companies we work with that you can submit your books to for review. So you can get reviews from these companies, the ones we have listed here and some other ones that we have on there. Also on that page, you'll find help for anything else that you need. There's marketing and publicity companies that we have listed there. There's editing companies. There's file design companies. So these are all companies that that offer services that we do not. And we've checked them out. We know they're not predatory, and they know what kind of work we expect here at Ingram. So it's a good way to go and pay and get some professional for the stuff that you need help with, and know that you're working with a reliable company. ALA shows, so American Library Association, they have state shows. So every state has once a year where all the librarians in that state will get together and go to a show for a weekend or a week. And that's a great way as an independent author or independent publisher to get your books right in front of librarians and put them in their hands. And so what you can do is you can buy a booth at one of these shows, go lay your books out. And that way, when the librarians are coming by, you're showing them directly, you're talking to them directly. And sometimes those booths can be a little expensive. So it's okay to go in as a collective. So maybe there's 3 or 4 of us that say, hey, I want to go to the Tennessee ALA show and have a booth. You want to go and split the cost. And then you'll have 3 or 4 publishers or independent authors at one table, sharing that table because they went in on it. So the state shows are a really great way to get your books in front of the librarians. And then the independent bookstores actually have regional shows throughout the year. So they're broken down into about 4 or 5 different regions across the country. And all those bookstores in that region will come meet for a week. And that's another opportunity for you to say, okay, I'm going to get a booth at, say, SIBA, which is the Southern Independent Booksellers Association. I'm going to get a booth at the SIBA show so I can introduce my book to all the booksellers from the Southern bookstores that are there. So it's a good way to get your books into the hands of and in front of actual booksellers and librarians, and to interact with them so they can know who you are and learn more about you. So this is some of the tips we have from some of our most successful indie authors. So at IngramSpark, we do have some very successful indie authors that are out there. And these are some of the tips they gave back to us that they would say that they would want to share with other authors. So many of them think of their writing as a way to earn a living. It's not just a side hobby. It's not just a little side project. Like their mindset is, I'm going to earn my living writing books. And I'm going to figure out how to do that. I'm going to think about that. Like, that is my ultimate goal, to make my money off my writing. They market themselves as a brand online and in person. So as an independent author or independent publisher, I've created this book. Well, the book is a product, and it's a product of my brand as the publishing house. So what you got to really think about yourself as a company and what you want your brand to be, what kind of interactions you want to have with your audience, what kind of interactions you want to have with your readership. So there's more to it than just thinking about the one single title in your hand, thinking about the next books I'm going to be writing. So I'm just going to always promote myself as a company, not necessarily just my one book. I want to have the basic marketing tools, a website, social media sites, readers, platform, email management. Email management is huge, because the more emails that you're able to manage and have a list of known readers, it makes it a lot easier the next time you write a book to hit that list up and say, hey, I know you like the first one, or I know that you're into my writing. I've got a new book that comes out, that just came out. So it's building that email and building those contacts that you can continually go back to every time you have a new book is really big. And there again, network at events and conferences, it's so important. The publishing industry seems very vast and very big, but the people in the publishing industry is not a lot. I mean, as far as like major decision makers, the people that are going to be actually buying the books, it seems like really big and vast, but it really is a tight network of people, and you just never know who's going to be what. So I may be talking to somebody today who's just a bookseller, but then before you know it, in a year or two, they own the bookstore. So it's really important to just always be nice, and then network as much as you can, and keep doing that as much as you can. Because after a while, especially going to shows like these author shows and the publishing shows, you're going to start seeing the same people over and over. And it really is cool how tight-knit of a community it is. You want to become an expert in their field, work with professionals. So if I've written a book about a specific topic, and maybe it's a social topic, or maybe it's something I've written about that's in town. Maybe I wrote about a certain bridge that's in town that everybody knows. Whenever anything comes up about those topics that you've written about, and you have the ability to speak on that, you always want to reach out to, you can reach out to the newspapers. You can reach out to media outlets. You can reach out to radio show hosts and say, hey, I'm actually a professional on X topic that y'all are talking about, or what's going on in the world right now. I've written a book on it. I'd love to come on and give you a few minutes of my time. Very open to that, because it helps fill airtime. It helps fill time with professionals that are talking about a specific topic. So don't be afraid to, if you see the opportunity to say, hey, I know about that. Let me see if I can't get on there and do some talking. It's just going to help you. It helps build your brand, and it helps expose you to more readers. You want to support your book selling community. There again, it's very, very important that you diversify where you're sending people to buy your books. You want them going everywhere possible to buy your book. That way, there again, makes your book easier to sell across the board. Pursue reviews and awards. Don't get discouraged by rejection. So this is a big one. You're going to get rejected. It's going to happen over and over and over. Just don't get discouraged. You have to keep your head up and keep trucking along. And then at one point, when you do have that breakthrough, you'll know it, you'll feel it, you'll realize it, and you'll forget about all that other rejection you had before then. But it really is important to just keep pushing forward, no matter what kind of pushback you get. And then there again, are polite, not rude. Just be nice to everybody you're dealing with, especially in the publishing world, because you just don't know who they will be tomorrow for you. So in summary, you want to know the market and what you're promoting your title, and you want to have the proper format and terms. That's where we're talking about. If you're going to be out promoting your book to the brick and mortar stores, then you want to make sure you have the proper terms for those stores. You want to ensure your books are listed and available in the markets for which you're driving your readers. There again, you want to make sure that you're driving readers where you know your book is available. So make sure that your book is there, and then figure out the clever ways of driving people there. Ensure your books have the best and most up-to-date metadata to better position them for discovery. Up-to-date metadata is key. And that's the thing about, with POD, you can revise the cover, you can revise the interior, but you can also go in and update your keyword. You can update your description whenever. So say I've written about a specific topic, maybe it's maybe it's a social topic that has now popped up in the news. Well, I wrote my book 2 or 3 years ago, but it's extremely relevant to what's being talked about right now in the news cycle. you would go in and then you would update your metadata into your description and keywords to type in whatever big event's happening in the news right now that's also relevant to your book. So you would put that in, because that way when people are out online searching about this particular news topic that's going on, your book metadata is feeding into that, because that topic is written either in your keyword or either in your description. So it's great to always have the most up-to-date metadata you possibly can. And then finally, work your tail off on giving the opportunity and support your local bookstores and libraries at every turn. So you've heard me drill that down 3 or 4 times throughout this presentation. It's just really understanding that you have a part in your sales too. So if you want a retailer or a library to carry your book, send people to those locations to buy your book or to request it from the library, because it really does pay off when you have that understanding that, hey, I'm in charge of driving sales. These are just the folks facilitating the sales. Let's get people moving there. And then new reporting services. So this just rolled out. It's not in everybody's account yet. It's only in a smaller segment of accounts, because it was our first rollout of it. So we wanted to have users use it, give us some feedback, see if there's any bugs or anything like that before we turn it on to the masses. But you're going to see a new reporting suite. You're going to be able to dial into country specific areas to see where your book's selling. You're going to be able to see which of your books is selling the best out of your whole catalog. We're actually going to rank your titles. We'll show you your title rank versus all the other IngramSpark titles that are similar to your book. There's your year-over-year sales. There's a lot, and these are widgets. So these are live widgets that you can dial into and dial into the information as you need it. But it's much more robust than anything we've ever offered before as far as reporting goes. And then if you need more help, we have our podcast. It's called Go Publish Yourself. It's available anywhere podcasts are available. We're one of the top rated independent publishing podcasts out there. Each of the podcasts are 15 minutes long, and we bring in a subject matter expert to talk for 15 minutes on a specific subject. So you can go in, and if you want to learn how to sell your book to independent bookstores, we have a 15-minute solid on that. Barnes & Noble, 15 minutes. Libraries, 15 minutes. We talk about metadata. We talk about building your website. We have all these different topics, and we've got, I don't know how many seasons we're up to now. It's either 5 or 6. But you can go in, pick which topic you want to hear about, and then you'll get 15 minutes of a subject matter expert talking to you directly about that. And those are free. Obviously, it's podcasts, so anywhere you listen to them, you'll be able to find us. We have the IngramSpark Academy. So this is something that's really cool that our marketing team put together, and it's also free. So you can go to resources and click on the Academy within the IngramSpark account. And what this is, it's a college-style online publishing class. So they've taken, the marketing team took information that we've had in our newsletters, blogs, from guests outside of Ingram, guests inside of Ingram, and they've taken all this information and condensed it down to free publishing classes that you can take on specific topics. And there's chapters, there's quizzes, there's everything that you would normally have in a school setting. And so it's totally free to you if you want to go in there and learn even more about being a successful publisher. And then we have our blogs and newsletters as well, which I know many of you are subscribed to, but I highly recommend subscribing to that, because that's where you're going to hear information about other service providers that are out in the world. You're going to get information from other people outside of Ingram who are professionals at what they do. You're going to see where when we run promos like we're running right now, where you can get free titles set up. All that good stuff is in the blogs and newsletter. And then if you want to get started today, like I said, it's free to open an account. You can go to just www.ingramspark.com and start the process there. And we are currently running a promo code for free title setup. So you get 3 free title setups with this promo code, Sweet Savings. And I'll throw that into the chat once I get done sharing the presentation. But you see it right there. It's Sweet Savings, all caps, all one word. So what'll happen is you'll go in, you'll put in all your metadata, you'll drop in your files, we'll process it. And then after you drop in your files, it'll ask you if you have a promo code. Use that promo code and it'll waive the setup fee. And it's $49 setup fee, one-time setup fee per print book, and a $25 setup fee per ebook. That will waive those fees. So there, at that point, it's free to open the account, free to upload your content, and you wouldn't pay us anything until you actually ordered books for yourself. All right. And I'm going to stop share. Yeah. All right, I guess we'll get, I've got a lot of chat going on here. All right, I'm going to roll through the chat screens here, and if there's anything in here that I have not answered, I will definitely answer it. How much is it to order author copies? How much per book? There again, that's where you want to go to the website, go to the printing and shipping calculator and put in your book specs and your quantity and your ship to address, and it'll tell you exactly what it costs per copy to print that book. No, iPage is not accessible to anyone. That is the catalog that the retailers and libraries use to dig in and find the book. So a reader or somebody off the street couldn't go to iPage and order the book. That's specifically for any retailer or library that has an account with Ingram. Yeah, so returns. So that's always nobody likes returns. Nobody does. And so the returns feature or the returns designation is you saying, okay, I want to make the book returnable. So if I'm going to be out promoting to brick and mortar stores, I have to have that book be returnable because the retailer wants to be able to return the book in case it does not sell. They need a way to recoup any money they possibly can on the book that did not sell so they can bring a book in that does sell. And so that's where it becomes really important, is when you're trying to get traction within the bookstores. If you're not selling in store, it's not as crucial to be returnable as it is if you are selling in store. So with the return options, you're saying, yes, I made this book returnable. If a retailer buys it and they, for some reason, don't sell it or can't use it or whatever, they're free to send the book back to Ingram, and Ingram will send the book back to the publisher and collect that money back. So in that scenario earlier, I didn't mention that on the page, but when I did the wholesale just breakdown earlier, and you saw where Ingram was buying that book for $9.40 in the scenario, so it was a $20 retail price minus 53%. Ingram was buying that book for $9.40. If that book was to get returned, Ingram wants that $9.40 back from the publisher. So if your book is returnable, you're subject to that. If it's not returnable and you go non-returnable, then those books can't come back. Like, there's not the option there for that. Self-published. As long as you, all right, so the question is if I self-published through Ingram, but I was previously sold on Amazon or BookBaby, is the pub date a new date or the original pub date? If it's your book and you have the rights to own that book and use whatever service you want, then you don't have to change the pub date. So you can just upload it and keep the pub date and everything the same. At IngramSpark, we are non-exclusive, meaning that you can use us and any other service provider out there. Now, the other service providers, whatever deal that you have with a BookBaby or something like that, that's between you and them. But for us, you would just upload the book, keep the original pub date, and just keep on rolling. Okay, how do editions? So, okay, the question is, how do editions work with IngramSpark? First edition, second edition, special editions. That's up to you as the publisher. We're going to print whatever you're putting in there. So if you want to make that your first edition and then you revise the book, if you change over 25% of that book, that then becomes a designated second edition, and you would just upload the new edition and call it your second edition in the subtitle. So we don't do anything with that. It's just whatever edition you're uploading yourself or that you want to have. So there again, if I had a book that was out for 4 or 5 years and I updated it and revised it, the content, and I changed about 20-25% of it at minimum, then I'm going to call that my second edition, just so people know it's not the same as the first book that was created. Ooh, let's see. Help a reporter out, list opportunities to work with journalists, etc., who are looking for experts on different topics. Awesome. That's a good tip. Does Ingram publish books that may be different from the normal type of book cover and or page types, vibrant book covers and or page colors? So with us, we do CYMK printing, 4-color printing process. So there again, whatever you create, we're going to print. So yeah, you can, if you've got a great cover design and you've done well, it's going to pop, it's going to look good. Interior, you can do full page color interior. You can do children's books, cookbooks, all of that with us. So that is all available there. When will the new reporting be available to all accounts? Once we have gotten through our first phase here of feedback from the publishers and any kind of bugs we have found, then that next phase will be rolling it out to the masses. And I say we are much closer to that than not. I would say that would be happening sooner rather than later, just because we've had it out now for about a month and we've gotten a lot of feedback. All right. Oh, everybody's out. Okay. Here's one of the questions. It says, I'm new to the wholesale publishing world, so forgive me, but I have a question. Does the author get their own ISBN, or does Ingram set that up as part of the metadata? So as the author, you're going to purchase your own ISBN. And I highly recommend doing that because you want to own every piece of content that's associated with your book. So for the US customers, you can go to Bowker, BOWKER.com, and that is the US agency for registering ISBNs to authors and publishers. You can also buy an ISBN through your IngramSpark account. And we also have free ISBNs at IngramSpark. So the difference is we are a retail partner of Bowker. So if you buy your ISBN through your IngramSpark account, you're buying it directly from Bowker. The only difference is we can only sell them one at a time. So if I went to Bowker.com, I can buy blocks of ISBNs. I can buy as many ISBNs as I want in blocks. And the more I buy in one purchase, the cheaper it is per unit or per ISBN. With us, we're $85 for a one-off ISBN. So, and I think, don't hold me to it, I think Bowker right now is at like 120 something for a one-off ISBN. There again, the difference being that if I go to Bowker and I buy bigger blocks, it's going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper with the more that I buy. With us, it's always $85 for one ISBN. So what I tell folks is if you're going to, and you got to think about how many ISBNs you're going to burn through, because if I do one title and I do a paperback, a hardcover, and an ebook, that's 3 different ISBNs that I need. So I know right away that, it may be a better deal for me to go buy a block. Just depends on how much writing, how many times how many ISBNs you expect to use. If you're writing one book and that's going to be your only book, then by all means, buy the ISBNs from us. It's going to save you money. If you are going to be doing multiple books over your course of your years, then you definitely want to go and buy you a big block from Bowker just because it'll be cheaper for you in the long run. And then the free ISBNs. We do offer free ISBNs in IngramSpark. It's the same as like Amazon's free ISBNs, in that those ISBNs are registered to IngramSpark. It's your book. We don't own the book because we own the ISBN, but you can only use our free ISBN at our site. You wouldn't be able to go to KDP or anywhere else with that ISBN because you don't own it. It's not registered to you. You're not the owner of that ISBN. IngramSpark is. Same with KDP. They do free ISBNs too, but if you use one of their free ISBNs, you wouldn't be able to upload it to IngramSpark. It's specifically for those sites when you get the free ones. Yeah, so question here is, please explain more about pre-sales. Where will people be able to see the pre-sales? Just wherever you want to distribute? Yeah, so when you do pre-sales, we're putting the book out into the world, and it has an future on-sale date of December 1st in that scenario that I gave. And so, no, it'll be at Amazon, it'll be at Barnes & Noble, it'll be at Bookshop, it'll be at all the retail locations available for sale, and it'll just say, pre-order this book. Yes, we do. Question is, do we have book jackets available for hardcovers? Yes, we do have dust jacket availability for many of the hardcover trim sizes. And you'll just see that while you're in the calculator building out your book. So what's the difference between publishing with Ingram versus publishing with Amazon KDP? The main difference is we just service 2 different markets. So Amazon obviously services the Amazon market, and that's what they're doing, is they're selling the book at Amazon.com and all their different .coms that they have around the world. Where Ingram is also selling your book at Amazon, we cater to the independent retailers, the big box stores, and the library. So our reach is different. Our customer base is different in that we reach all retailers and not just the one site. But you can do both. So you can do both for sure. So it's really important because it's going to give you the widest reach. So what I always tell folks is if you're with Amazon KDP, you definitely want to use IngramSpark because we have a different reach. It gives your book in different outlets. If you're going to choose one or the other and you haven't chosen one, I always recommend choosing IngramSpark because we are going to post your book at Amazon, plus you get all the other retailers. But you can certainly use both platforms. And I mean, there are tons and tons of authors that do that. I recommend it from time to time just because it's going to give you the widest reach possible. What's the best way? All right, so what is the best way to obtain customer support from Ingram as you move through the publishing process? So this is where, so with us, we just turned our phone and chat back on. So we have email, we have phone, and we have chat, live chat within the account. The thing to think about with our customer support team is they are there utilitarian. They are there to make sure that your account is working, that your books are printing, and that the books are going where they need to. They're not publishing consultants. So if you call in looking for help or guidance on anything beyond that, if you get somebody that's been around a while who's learned a lot, then you can maybe get some help. But they're ultimately not publishing consultants. They are there just to make sure the account is functioning the way it's supposed to and that your orders are getting where they need to be. And so that's where it kind of gets a little frustrating too, is, you'll get a hold of customer support and they'll answer your question. And then you'll have the follow-up question. And if it's not pertaining to the account, there's not much that they can do to help you just because they're just not consultants. It's just not part of the job. I think that's it.
Wow, that was extremely informative. Yes, hands, everybody clapping. Some of the marketing concepts, I kind of already knew that you should have people call the library and say, can you carry my book, or say, go ahead to the bookstore and ask for my book. But I never really thought of it in terms of, so that the bookstore would know to order your book and be aware of it. But I never really thought of it in terms of using it like maybe the next book that I launch, I just want to direct everybody to my local Barnes and Noble, or I just want to direct everybody that wants to buy one, rather than having them at my launch party say, let's have a launch party, now go to that indie bookstore down the street and ask them to order my book for you, or whatever. You could really include that in your marketing strategy. And that's something I hadn't really thought of before.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the booksellers and the bookstores is they're retailers there to sell product. That's their main goal. So if they see that and the reason I'm so passionate about the independent bookstores is I was an independent bookstore rep for Ingram for many, many years. I covered 15 states, so I know all the bookstores in those 15 states. And it's just they are there to sell books, and they are happy to help and work with you as a local author to your area as long as they see the business coming in. It just really opens up the door when they can look at their sales and be like, okay, this person gets it. They're sending sales our way. We actually have sales, in tracked. Let's see what else we can do to make even more.
We've been fortunate to have our local Barnes and Noble partner with us for the book festival that I organized, that you're partnered with this year, and they will do a display. They did a display last year. They're going to do a display this year. But I'm passionate about independent bookstores myself. I'm indie all the way across. I love independent stuff all the way across. We've had a hard time finding a way to partner with independent bookstores, but I'm hoping in the future that's something I kind of have my mindset to with Carden is figuring out the best outreach method and best partnership methods for making the book festival useful to independent bookstores. So I'm hoping that at some point, if you have any thoughts of organizations I should be reaching out to, I would love to, if you could email them to me, I would love to hear that. And Carden and I can look, see if we can't figure out something for 2023, because obviously we have Barnes and Noble is great because we have all these local authors whose books it would be great because they'll be sending people they know and family and friends to come pick their books up. And that worked out great last year. Our display was pretty small last year, but we had a very small, it was a reduced capacity last year. This year we have over 100 authors, which is awesome. So this is really informative. Everybody that's listening, it's important to know about that returnable feature. because that is what Barnes and Noble is going to want in order to carry your book in their catalog. So if you do publish, if you have not yet, and you're on the cusp of figuring out publishing your book right now, and you want it to be in the Barnes and Noble display, and you are not published at this point where you're returnable and you have that discount that they need, that he was talking about earlier. And if you watch this again, you can watch through the slides. He explains it very well. That is how you're going to be able to get your book into the Barnes and Noble catalog in order to get them to order it, to put it on the display, because they can't just order everybody's book.
Yeah, I work with the Barnes and Noble corporate buying team out of New York, and that's something that Barnes and Noble is very, very heavy on, is just that. You have to have your full trade discount, you have to be returnable, and you have to have your price in the barcode. They prefer that too. So if you're looking to get your book into Barnes & Noble, even beyond your store setup, you can go to barnesandnoble.com, and they have a small press. It's one of their tabs says like small press. Click on that, and Barnes & Noble has a small press department with specific instructions on how to introduce your book to them. And I work with that team. They go through every one of those submissions and really check out the books, but that's their only funnel to do that. So even when I'm working with Barnes & Noble and it's a book that I'm pitching them on or telling them about, and they want to carry it, they always say, all right, we'll send them to the small press department. And I have to send the publisher, through that process they have. But it's definitely not taken lightly. They really do look at all these books.
And our local Barnes and Noble has been wonderful, just like our library system has. We do have another question. Can you limit how long the return policy is in effect? And I think that answers, I know you'll go ahead and answer it.
Yeah. So what happens is you have your book, you can set it up as non-returnable, or you set it up as returnable. When you go from returnable to non-returnable, then the marketplace of retailers have 6 months from the time you make that change to get the books returned. So for instance, that's just that. So if I'm returnable today and I decide I don't want to be returnable tomorrow, I would flip to non-returnable, and then retailers would have up to 6 months to return the book, and then they can't return it anymore.
And just to be clear to everybody too listening, I think there's a lot of fear surrounding. I know for me there's a lot of fear surrounding clicking that returnable button, because there's this fear that you're going to owe all this money to IngramSpark if the books are returned. But remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but remember, they've sold, all you're doing is they're getting reimbursed for money that you already earned. So it's not like you're going to pay money out of your pocket for that book, only if you have them return it to you, the physical copy to you.
No, because even if you do returnable and non-deliver back to you, you're still going to get charged that wholesale price that Ingram had to pay for the book, and the return came back. Where returns get really big, so we pay 90 days out from the end of the month of which a sale takes place. So if you're having sales every month, you've got this pot of money that's sitting over here. And so whenever returns do come back, we take it out of that pot of money that we owe you. It's not unless we get more returns than we owe you, then we get a call and say, hey, we got to invoice you for this. But until then, it's just working out of the pot of money that we already owe you. And the thing about returns is it's different based on class of trade. So, like I said, libraries return less than 1%. Independents return, less than 5%. The bigger box stores, they're going to be returning more like 30 to 40% of the stuff they buy. And so it's really big. The returns really come into play is if you're returnable, and say, for instance, you're having great sales at an online retailer, and you've got the one online retailer who's getting so many sales of this book that they're going to say, well, let me go ahead and get 500 copies and bring it in because the system's telling me that that's how much we're selling. Well, then all of a sudden that book stops selling. That's when they're going to start looking at their inventory and saying, hey, we got a couple hundred books here that are no longer selling. And so that's when the returns really come back. It's not too often that happens, but it does with the online retailers. If you're returnable, one in particular, when they overload, then they will send it back. But outside of that, it's not like, because if you get a sale to an independent bookstore, like 3 units is a great sale to an independent bookstore. So it's not like a lot of risk out there. It's just when your book's selling so well at certain online retailers that they bring in stock for their warehouses. And that's when you can really see a return hurt you.
Okay.
Josh, let me ask you this real quick, if you
Yeah.
wouldn't mind. You mentioned the Kwame Alexander story. Could you give like a synopsis of it for anybody that's not familiar with?
Well, the thing that Kwame he talks about when he's seen at the shows is when he was first getting started, way back when. I mean, I guess 70s or 80s, whenever he had first broken out. And so he knew that he was going to go to Chicago, and he wanted to be able to do book events at the independent bookstores in Chicago. So Kwame very smartly said, I called every friend and family member I had in the Chicago area and sent them to the bookstores to buy my book. So then when Kwame came to town, was rolling through, and he has his book, the booksellers already say, hey, I know that book. We've been selling that book like crazy. And so it just made it a lot easier for him to engage with the bookstore, do his book events, and build his cachet with the bookstores. But he said, anytime I would go to a new city, I would just make, a couple weeks beforehand, have everybody I know in that city go in and buy the book. So when I go in there, I have a little bit of clout because they recognize my book.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of times we as writers feel like, oh, we don't want to impose on our family and friends, but it felt like that story is an example of things that people can do that not necessarily require money from the people who are supporting you.
Yeah.
Or asking.
And that's the thing too that I always have a hard time with is relying on your family and friends to get started. Because to me, I get it. Like, they're your family, your friends. You get your book created. You want to give them the book for free, so that with the idea that that they're going to read it, like it, and then go tell a bunch of people about it. Whereas really, though, those families and friends are your fire starters for sales. So, depending on who they are, maybe they don't need a free book. They can't afford to go. And so that's where you would want to say, you really want to support me, go down to your local store and buy my book. That would be the most helpful thing. So I always see family and friends as like kindling fire starters to get sales to start happening in the market. So it's either or. And I get both sides of it, not wanting to ask, but also not being afraid to be like, hey, if you can, go buy my book.
Right. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. It's been so informative for me. I think that everybody really appreciates your time this evening. And for everybody, remember to support IngramSpark and share their information via your social media if you use them, if you want to try them, or if you want to invite somebody to our Salon group to come watch this video, because I will be uploading it once it's all recorded, so probably tomorrow.
And IngramSpark is on all the social media channels too. So you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that. So if you want to start following IngramSpark, that's a great way to get information very quickly and upfront too.
Yes, if you go to the Right Women Book Fest Instagram, you'll see Josh's photo in one of our posts, and the IngramSpark is tagged there. And are you on TikTok now? I think you weren't a little while ago.
We're not. No, we don't have an official TikTok.
Okay.
We pay attention to it, but we don't have an official.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, TikTok is I haven't been on it in several weeks because just book fest stuff.
Yeah.
It's like I want to be there, but this is like trying to do the real things like this. Sometimes it takes precedence over that. But Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, everybody. Thank you for coming. Yes, there. People are saying they're grateful and thank you. And remember to use the sweet savings, all caps, no spaces. If you want to set up your IngramSpark and order, what it specifically is the deal again?
It is free. It's a setup fee, so it waives that setup fee for the titles, and you can use it up to 3 times.
And do you need to have everything, like do you need to have the book written, all your metadata ready and everything to go? Yeah,
you'll want to have completed files ready to go, because that's the part where you're saying, all right, I'm ready to start printing some books. I'm going to upload it to the system.
So if you have your stuff ready to roll and you weren't sure how to get it, where to publish it, here's your answer, and you're going to get $50 off. So that's great. Thank you again, everybody. Good night. I'm going to stay behind and talk to